Hello, Bygone Geek Universe, and welcome to your weekly dose of nostalgia. Step away from the stress of today and join me back in 1990. It's your time traveler's guide to this very moment, just way back when.
Step by step, ooh, baby, gonna get to you, girl.
All right, folks, as you may know if you've tuned into the past 75 episodes, we're doing a little bit of a pivot today. My co-host David, if you've listened to our last episode, Armageddon's Rewind, he decided that he was going to take a little break from the show. We don't know what that's going to look like in the future. He's got a family to take care of. So we wish him well, but I wanted to really keep this show going. So today's new format that we're going to try from this point on is kind of giving you a glimpse of a segment in time of what you would have been doing today in this very moment, just way back when. What would have been on your radio? What would you have rented from Blockbuster Video? What was the news at the time? I really just want everybody to feel like they are transported back in this particular time, just in 1990. So let's go ahead and get this started. The very first thing that we're going to do is movies that were at the theater.
Coming soon to a theater near you.
All right, folks, the convenience of checking an app on your phone for movie reviews, for movie times, for booking your tickets, all the convenience completely out the window. Now we have to, call our local theater with our landline phone, or we have to check the TV guide or the newspaper. It's really crazy to think about how much has changed. So if you were to walk to your local theater or drive to your local theater, depending how old you were at this time, and you looked at that marquee, you would see Die Hard 2.
This is just the beginning.
On July 4th, Die Harder. Bruce Willis, Die Hard 2.
Bruce frickin' Willis in the month of July, 4th of July, nothing better than a sequel to Die Hard. I mean, Die Hard 2 was such a killer movie. I feel like in hindsight now, when I rewatch like Die Hard 2, Die Hard with a Vengeance, I do kind of feel like Die Hard 2 might be the third in line for me for popularity. I mean, Die Hard 1 always has that mantle as an epic action Christmas movie. Yes, I declared that line in the sand. It is a Christmas movie to me, even if Bruce Willis says otherwise. But Die Hard with a Vengeance, I think, is my second, and then Die Hard 2. But yeah, I mean, to see Die Hard 2 in 1990 would have been quite amazing. And then another really good movie that was also out at this time was Days of Thunder.
I'll take your word for what a car can do, but I'm not taking anybody's word for what I can do, because nobody knows.
Or what I would like to call the prequel to Talladega Nights, the Ballad of Ricky Bobby.
Help me, Tom Cruise! Tom Cruise using witchcraft only to get the fire off me!
I mean, you have John C. Reilly in it, in both movies, except for it's like in the first movie, he's so serious. He's this pit crew hardened guy. And then, you know, in Talladega Nights, he's just this ridiculous comic relief. Days of Thunder was a classic. I know for me, that mellow yellow car that he drove in the movie that eventually became, I believe, Kyle Petty's car in real NASCAR. I remember getting that model for my birthday and putting that car together. And that was just so cool to me. And of course, I also loved drinking mellow yellow. Like it was, I mean, they did such a good job with the product placement in that movie. And I just love Tom Cruise. Days of Thunder is definitely one of my top favorites. And then there's a little bit of a pivot here. We have Ghost.
Oh, my love.
And I don't know about you guys, but I was horrified by those shadowy Dementor figures that like had the screeching sounds that would come out of the floor and take the bad guy away. Like it was so terrifying. But as time has gone on, I have appreciated Ghost more and more and more. It's definitely a Patrick Swayze classic, and it's crazy to me that like Patrick Swayze's like some of his pinnacle movies are Ghost and Roadhouse, two wildly different movies. So another one we have here that I actually have even scarier memories of when I was a kid is Dick Tracy was another movie in the theaters at this very moment in 1990. And this movie horrified me absolutely beyond belief.
Warren Beatty is
It wasn't until like it's just complete news to me in recent years that like Al Pacino is the bad guy in Dick Tracy. He has so many facial prosthetics on that he just looks terrifying. And Dustin Hoffman is also one of the guys with the crazy facial prosthetics. I mean, they were absolutely terrifying to a kid that's like 5, 6, 7 years old in 1990. It was not, I'll be honest with you, I haven't actually rewatched this movie since I was a kid. I don't think I ever did a second watch of this. And I think it's just because I have this leftover like psychological trauma from the facial prosthetics of these characters. But I know that there's a lot of people who love this movie. So, hosting a nostalgia podcast, I guess I need to give it another try at some point in the future. And then the fifth movie on this list that you would have had a choice of in 1990 at the movie theaters was Total Recall.
You got a lot of nerve showing your face around here.
Look who's talking.
I mean, I'm very biased. Arnold was like my entire childhood. But I mean, out of these five in 1990, what would you have seen if you had the choice at the theater? Die Hard 2, Days of Thunder, Ghost, Dick Tracy, and Total Recall. I know for me, like I said, I'm biased. Arnold Schwarzenegger would have been my choice. Total Recall was such a crazy, over-the-top movie. Just get your ass to Mars.
Get your ass to Mars.
Like it was, I mean, taking Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's crazy in any setting, in a kindergarten classroom, in a post-apocalyptic Terminator sort of like storyline, Commando. You put him in the jungle in Predator, and in this, it's you get his ass to Mars. Like it was so perfect like for an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. What's crazy is Arnold Schwarzenegger was originally not cast as the leading man in Total Recall. It was actually Patrick Swayze. My goodness, it would have been such a wildly different movie if Patrick Swayze was actually in Total Recall. I can't really picture it. Like it's so wildly different. But apparently they actually started production with Patrick Swayze like on board to play that role. And along the way, the original studio actually went bankrupt and they just abandoned the whole thing. And it wasn't until later on that I think it's Carol Co. Pictures, they picked the movie up. Arnold got on board. They made the movie, and it's an instant classic. It's one of Arnold's top movies, I feel like. Another cool fact that I found about Total Recall is, did you know that it actually originally was rated at the notorious X rating? It was considered actually one of the final movies to get an X rating. And they actually had to like take it back, re-edit it to chip it back down to an R rating. I mean, we all know 80s and 90s action, especially in 1990, it was this bridge between the two, was so crazy, so over the top, so bloody. So, you have the sequence of Arnold with an animatronic head and his eyes are popping out on the surface of Mars. Like it was just so crazy and so over the top. But to hear that I was actually originally rated X, that rating went from 1968 to 1990 and eventually turned into the NC-17 rating. But yeah, it's crazy to think. I'd be curious to see what the rated X rating, like if there's going to be a director's cut version of that in the future as bonus content. I would definitely check that out for sure.
Do it. Do it.
So the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to pivot into what would you be listening to right now in 1990? What are the top hits? What would you have been tapping your foot to or belting out in your bedroom or in your car or whatever you would have been doing? So let's transition right into music.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Casey's Top 40.
So on the top Billboard charts, and I can tell you right now too, Casey Kasem in his top 40, he has such an iconic, I'm Casey Kasem. Like he has such a cool, iconic voice. So to be able to listen to some of his old clips and to look up the history of 1990, I mean, it's a fun trip down memory lane. And to think that you could be somebody that your voice is so iconic that it's gonna live on forever. And Casey Kasem by far is one of those people. So I'm not going to start with the number one song here because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, even though if you're paying attention to some of the audio clips, I kind of did already. But some of the top songs included Hold On for One More Day.
Things will go your way if you hold on for one more day.
Such a classic song. Hold on for one more day. Like it was just, I mean, I think it was Bridesmaids. Then maybe that was in recent years. I can't fully remember. Another classic song. And mind you, this is from an era, I feel like in 1990, this bridge between, like I said, the 80s and 90s, movie soundtrack songs were so huge that you would have these big artists write a song specifically for a movie, and it was the title song for the movie. So another big song from 1990 was It Must Have Been Love, specifically for the Pretty Woman film.
It must have been love, but it's over now.
And at this very moment in 1990, the top song was none other than Step by Step by New Kids on the Block.
Step by step, ooh, baby.
Man, oh man, was New Kids on the Block such a huge part of this particular era and time. I mean, I remember all the different toys, all the different, bed sheets, posters, magazines, like everything you could possibly think of was New Kids on the Block stuff. I mean, as much as later on in my childhood, you had NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, I mean, there was a lot. I mean, it was our childhood, our generation's childhood was very much just boy band after boy band after boy band. But I really do attribute, at least in my time, I mean, I'm 38 years old. In my time, the very first boy band that really caught my world by storm was by far New Kids on the Block. I mean, they were just so cool and different. And the way they carried themselves was just, I mean, it's no wonder. It's just no wonder they were so huge. And it's kind of cool to see them coming back into the forefront in present day. I mean, so many people carry so much nostalgia with New Kids on the Block. Out of all of those different things, what would have been on your radio? What would you be listening to right now? What after this episode are you going to put on your Spotify or Apple Music playlist to reminisce? Let me know. I really want to know what connects with all of you listeners and viewers. Really what touches your nostalgic heart. So the very next thing that we're going to transition to now is the TV lineup, the TV shows that you would be watching at this very moment in 1990. This was really fun to research. So let's go right ahead and we're going to transition right into TV history of this moment.
Stay tuned for a whole new season of TGIF.
I can tell you right now, folks, I miss TV announcers like that. I know it's cheesy. I know it's like, you're going to miss the TGI Friday. Like, it's so cheesy, but cheesy in this charming way that I miss so much. I miss announcers' voices. I miss even movie trailers. I miss that cheesy announcer voice from this era. It was so, I don't know. Like I said, the charm to it was just amazing. But in this moment, in 1990, it was some seriously amazing TV lineups. Like, for instance, I looked back at old school TV guides that Tuesdays on ABC, at this moment, you could lie on your living room floor in front of your giant tube television and watch back to back Who's the Boss, Wonder Years, Roseanne, and Coach. Man, TV is not TV anymore. When you look back at things like this, it's so clear that we grew up in an era where TV was just a whole different ball game. I mean, that lineup is so amazing, and that's just one channel. That's one day, one channel on like that you get. That, I mean, I'm almost speechless about it. And like another great one, this isn't just a fluke on one channel. You look at Fridays on ABC, you could kick off the weekend. Your primetime television lineup was back-to-back Full House, Family Matters, Perfect Strangers. My goodness. Like, Give me that era of television. Take me back. Like those, I learned so many good moral lessons from all of those shows. I mean, it was strong family units, strong friendships, difficult problems that everybody faced. Like it was, I don't know, it had this innocence to it in that era, and all of them would sometimes, of course we'd have things like, I know I did some recent clips on Instagram and YouTube of like the crossover between Family Matters and American Gladiators. Sure, that's just for fun. That's for fan service. That's to like, cross-pollinate your ratings and stuff like that. But even that, I can't even discredit that episode, because even that had a good message to it, that Urkel and Carl argued with each other, didn't like one another, and had to settle the score by going on American Gladiators. And then when push came to shove, you got this era of television of the last like 60 seconds. They fixed their problems. They laughed it off. They hugged each other. They apologized. I miss that charm of this era of television.
It's the bigger love of the family.
The forefather of the fail video, America's Funniest Home Videos, every Sunday at 8 p.m. in 1990. Oh, jeez. We're the red, white, and blue, all the funny things you do. America, America, this is you. Oh, such a great theme song. I mean, Bob Saget, man. This is from that era where he was like that TV dad that everybody thought was like, you got Danny Tanner. He's teaching you, life lessons and all that sort of stuff. And in recent years, like in the past decade, I discovered Bob Saget's comedy, and woo, that it is not Danny Tanner's comedy. Danny Tanner would walk out of that venue. But it's kind of cool to see that Danny Tanner, this pure father from this era of television, was sadly one of the most adult comics you could listen to. But I loved it. I think the charm that I had for the nostalgia of Danny Tanner and Bob Saget carried through all the way until his passing. He definitely holds a piece of my nostalgic heart.
Thank you, and hi everybody. Welcome to America's Funniest Home Videos. Now you are in for a treat tonight.
What would you, out of all of those different things, what would you have picked from that era of television to watch in this very moment in 1990? It's a pretty difficult choice. So the very next thing we're going to transition to is actually some news from this era at this very moment in 1990. So here we go.
That's not the news for this Wednesday night. I'm Tom Brokaw. I'll see you tomorrow night from Mount St. Helens.
Well, I'm Tom Brokaw. Again, the announcer voices, man. Where are these cool announcer voices anymore in 2023? Oh, man, just classic voices. But here's your news headlines. Top 2 news headlines for this very moment in 1990. This first one, mind you, think about, we're talking about 1990. We're not talking about present day things. So here we go. Today, at this moment in 1990, you would have seen in the news cycle that 400 kids and teenagers were treated for heat exhaustion and hyperventilation after waiting for hours in the sun to see the New Kids on the Block. About 35,000 youngsters traveled to Harriet Island Park in Minnesota for the concert. And it says that many waited for more than 8 hours with little food or drink in hopes of getting a view of the very popular performers. I mean, that's such a 1990s storyline, is 400 kids getting heat stroke and hyperventilation while waiting in the summer sun for New Kids on the Block. But I mean, they were such, like I said earlier in the episode, like they took the world by storm. Like they were everywhere. Everybody was obsessed with them. And especially teens and young adults were just over the moon about New Kids on the Block. So, I mean, we can laugh about it now because in reality, those 400 kids are now millennials who have a story that they're telling their kids that, Oh, you think waiting for a Taylor Swift concert in an air-conditioned enclosed arena is difficult? Back in my day, I got hyperventilation and heat stroke while waiting in the summer sun in Minnesota to see New Kids on the Block. Like, man, what a story to be able to tell your kids. What a piece of nostalgia. Like that's so cool. So also in the news at this time is super popular sitcom star Roseanne Barr. This is the moment. You would have saw it on television in 1990 at this very moment that Roseanne Barr infamously and horribly sang the national anthem between a doubleheader for the Padres and the Reds. Fans, not happy. Not remotely happy. When you go back and you look at this clip, she was booed so loudly. If you get a chance to watch the clip of her singing this in 1990, one of the funniest parts about it is that she was married to Tom Arnold at the time. And at the very end, she walks over to Tom Arnold, and Tom Arnold, you can hear him on the microphone of the camera go, "Let's get the kids and get the hell out of here." Like, he knows that, like, we're going to create a riot. These people are going to go crazy.
Get the kids, get out of here.
At this very moment in 1990, what were the home video rentals that you would have had to pick from? So here we go.
Come discover the blockbuster difference.
All right, folks, the top video rentals at this very moment in 1990 included Tremors,
Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, Tremors.
Kevin Bacon, good old Kevin Bacon, saving the world from underground worms. But we'll get to it in a second. Like that, I love this movie. Tango and Cash. I mean, you got Kurt Russell and Sylvester Stallone on the same screen together. Then you have The Wizard, the California, going to California to compete in a Nintendo video game contest and to play and reveal Super Mario Brothers 3. What a cool storyline. I watched that movie religiously as a kid.
I love the Power Glove. It's so bad.
I got to throw in here another top video rental at this time was Hard to Kill. It is a classic Steven Seagal B-rated movie, even though weirdly, I don't think it was actually B-rated then. I think it was a pretty big film. But Hard to Kill was a classic. And I can't remember her name, but I believe his love interest in that was the lady that was in Weird Science, that she was the lady that they created in their science experiment in their bedroom. I don't know why I can't think of her name, but she was great in that as well. It's definitely my top Steven Seagal movie. I mean, what a mix, like what a crazy mix of what you could rent. So it's like, can you imagine in 1990 standing there and looking at the likes of Tremors, Tango and Cash, The Wizard, and Hard to Kill? Like, what would be out of those? What would be your top choice? I had a hard time picking because The Wizard is so cool to me. Tango and Cash is also cool to me. I mean, Steven Seagal is cool to me. But weirdly, out of all of these ones, I would have to pick Tremors. Like, Tremors, I don't know what it is about this movie. I can't remember the first time that I watched it, but I feel like it was at far too young of an age. But the premise of this lone desert town there's these sudden earthquakes, and then they discover that the earthquakes are caused by these giant underground man-eating, animal-eating worms. Such a crazy premise. And they never tell you if they're aliens, if they're otherworldly, or whatever they might be. There's some prehistoric, sort of thing that came up from the core of the earth. Like, they gave me no backstory on it. So it's like very elusive and creepy. But who saves the town? Kevin Bacon. It's so funny because as I looked up different facts about this movie, because it's my top choice, apparently, Kevin Bacon despised this movie. Like, Kevin Bacon actually saw Tremors as his low point, his lowest point in his movie career. And he actually, in an interview, said, "I broke down and fell to the sidewalk, screaming to my pregnant wife, 'I can't believe I'm doing a movie about underground worms.'" Well, Kevin, I can tell you right now, Tremors is a classic. I know a lot of people that also agree with me that Tremors is a classic. It is a combination of a horror film, but also a little bit of a comedy, but also it's like it has some campiness in it, but it's like there's legit scary parts, but also legit funny campy parts. And I think that that's why it appealed to so many people in this era, is because it covered a lot of bases. But apparently Kevin Bacon, not only with him thinking that this movie was the worst movie of his career, but Kevin Bacon would actually have nightmares about this movie, that he would regularly dream about these giant worm creatures from Tremors, because these were animatronic. They were real. They weren't fake in this movie. This is 1990. It's like they were there, animatronic, moving around, juicy, gross. Just all the fangs that you saw in the movie is what Kevin Bacon's seeing from like 3 feet away. But apparently he would actually have nightmares about this movie. And he says here that those nightmares led to some very bizarre evenings for Bacon and his then pregnant wife, Kyra Sedgwick. He says, I would pick her up and sleepwalk, carry her out into the street. And she would be like, honey, 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 you're asleep. And I'd say, no, I've got to get you out of here. So his subconscious was just like, I got to save my pregnant wife from these giant, like, man-eating worms. Like, what a cool piece of nostalgic history.
Can you fly, you sucker? Can you fly?
To close things out, I would like to have each of these episodes of jumping back to a particular moment in time. I would love people to share voicemails on our website. So if you go to bygonegeek.com, right there on any page, on the homepage, whatever you go to, there is this blue button that'll be on the right side of your phone, on the right side of your screen, that says, I think it says, leave us a voicemail. You can click on that and follow us on Instagram and all the different platforms to find out. I'll release in advance what year and time that we're going to be doing. And just leave us a voicemail of movies, music, video rentals, news, anything that you experienced in that era, or anything that even if you weren't born in that era, still join in the conversation, because I guarantee you there's movies and music that you experienced later in your life that was from that particular era that I just love hearing other people's nostalgia. So here we go.
Eric, Postman Paulie here. Summer of 1990 was amazing. It had a ton of great movies, a ton of great music, and I'm sure you're going to hit on a lot of those things. But for me, in movies, Dick Tracy came out. Warren Beatty is Dick Tracy, and even as a youngster back then, I was going into 4th grade. I noticed Madonna as Breathless Mahoney. Back to the Future 3, one of my all-time favorite movies series at that time. Step by Step came out, and I remember hearing the Tonight Song and Step by Step just floating through the air of the streets of my little town. I would lie to the girls to impress them, telling them I'd been backstage. I love New Kids on the Block. Eric, I have to ask you, who was your favorite New Kid? For me, Jordan Knight, man. He was just the coolest. He had the hair. He can sing really high. I wanted to be Jordan Knight.
The passion in his voice. I mean, yeah, but I will address the most important question that Postman Paulie just gave me. Is, to me, the top New Kids on the Block was Jordan. I agree. Jordan was so cool looking. I think he had one of the best voices of the group. And also, he holds a place in my nostalgic heart because my sister had a Jordan Knight doll. He had this like golden earring and this long rat tail braided ponytail and like a Superman style kind of like swoop. And it was like, I think it was a red and black suit or like jacket that he wore, and he had these fancy like dress loafer shoes on. Like, he was just, yeah, he was cool. And so to me, to be able to see him and hear him in New Kids on the Block, but then I would always try to take that whenever my sister and I would play together. I would always try to take that and want to play with the Jordan doll. Like, it was cool to me. And I, at that era too, I had a rat tail. It was not as cool and as long as braided as Jordan Knight's, but I sported a rat tail at this very moment in 1990.
We're sending you back to the future.
That's our trip down memory lane. That's our time traveler's guide to this very moment in 1990. And like I always say, like, just be sure to live your life with a little bit of whimsy. Don't forget your childhood. Don't. So thank you so much for listening to this new chapter of Bygone Geek. Thank you for tapping into your whimsy, and thank you for joining me at this very moment in 1990. We'll see you guys next week.